how it'll work today.
There we go. Thank you.
Yep. So just to start, you know, I don't know about you guys, but for me, peaches and ice cream are both true summer indulgences. You know, really, really good peaches. Like Diane was saying before, August is peach month. And, you know, to me, that is the premier month to get peaches. You can get them other times of the year, but they really are the best in August. And then, of course, ice creams. It's funny because July is ice cream month. So we kind of picked two things that go together here. And I feel like pairing them together is true heaven. But just a little bit about peaches. So they actually originated in China, and they made their way to Persia, then Greece, and then the temperate European countries such as Italy, Spain, and France. And they were first introduced to the southeastern US more than 300 years ago by Spanish explorers. It's thought that the English and French settlers brought peach seeds with them to the northeastern US, so like where we are now in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and such. And at first, peaches in America were mostly grown in private orchards until commercial production took off in the 19th century. Now, today, peaches are commercially produced in roughly 20 states. This was kind of interesting to find out. Pennsylvania is among the top 5 peach producers, alongside California, South Carolina, Georgia, and New Jersey. That's my home state, actually. So you can get, you know, this whole area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, were among the top producers. And although obviously peaches are delightful eaten out of hand, they're also used to enhance and infuse drinks such as peach tea and cocktails, and incorporated into many savory dishes. I know my husband and I love them grilled with just a drizzle of balsamic vinegar. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but it's really great to have alongside chicken or pork, or just, you know, by itself. But one of the most popular ways to showcase peaches are peach desserts. So that's cobblers, crisps, crumbles, cakes, and pies. And in fact, I found out too that peaches are such a part of American lore that, according to the Oxford Companion to American Food and Drink, peach cobbler rivals traditional apple pie as the classic all-American dessert. And I don't know about you guys, and it's funny, I always remember this when my daughter was born, a neighbor brought over a peach cobbler, and I was like, I don't need anything. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this is the best thing. I was like so hungry, and I was just like, this peach cobbler is the best peach cobbler. So I agree that it can rival apple pie. Now, in doing research for my second book, The $1,000 Dinner, which Diane mentioned before, and it was, just to explain a little more, it was a 17-course dinner that took place in 1851. Here's part of the menu there on the left-hand side. He listed all the courses, and you have to really look up close, but under the 13th course pastry, it does say peach pie. I know it's kind of blurry. But anyway, I didn't realize when I was doing the research that in the 19th century, peach pie recipes actually called for whole peaches. I know that seems really funny, but that's right. They were whole, unpitted peaches. They would nestle them on top of the pastry crust, sprinkle with sugar, water, and flour, and then cover with a top crust, like I'm showing here. And the idea behind this method is that the peach kernels located inside the pit produce the subtle almond flavored essence. So in fact, peach kernels were actually used to flavor other dishes such as custards, preserved peaches, like we were talking about today, and even cream sauce. So, and they were also actually enjoyed as candy. So at this $1,000 dinner, another course that James Parkinson had was just confectionery. And on that course, he served these Chinese almonds, which were actually kernels. They were large, sweet, non-toxic seeds of a special apricot that was grown solely for this purpose. So it's funny how, especially back then, you know, people would really try to use as much as they could of any kind of fruit, vegetable, whatever. And that's what they were doing here. And there were some 19th century recipes that were like today, and they called for pitting and slicing and peeling the peaches. Some said to just cut them in half before putting in the pie, but they were mostly later in the century. So it seems like this was kind of the way that they did it then. And it is an interesting presentation. It's just hard when you serve it because you don't want to serve somebody a pit, and it's, you know, kind of hard slicing it in, but they really, it looks really cool to make this pie for somebody. Now, today we can get most fruits any time of the year, you know, between trucks and planes and trains and such, shipped from faraway places when they're not in season. But this wasn't always the case. Many fruits, including peaches, are fragile and can spoil easily. So in the days before refrigeration, shipping and storing them was often difficult. In the 19th century, a popular way to enjoy fruit such as peaches year-round was to preserve them in a sugary syrup. So the sugar acted as a preservative too, and that way they could enjoy them at different times of the year. So the peaches were pared and cored or pitted and then cut in half and then quartered or sliced, or sometimes they were even like just cut in half, like I'm showing here in this picture. And also peaches could be preserved whole, which involved peeling them first and then using a skewer to push out the pit. So I don't know why they would preserve them whole, but maybe they just, you know, wanted different ways, or I'm thinking maybe they would hold up better, maybe like a little bit if they were whole than in slices, I don't know. But the peaches would then be boiled until tender in a preserving kettle, which would be like a big heavy stock pot like we have now, and then carefully removed and set aside. And then the juice that remained was strained and combined with sugar. The general rule was a pound of sugar per pound of fruit. Sometimes flavoring such as lemon, cinnamon, or brandy, as again, what we're talking today, which also was a preservative. You know, liqueurs like brandy, Madeira wine were often incorporated into cakes too to help preserve them. So this was just another way to make sure they wouldn't go bad, and they would be added to the syrup. Now, then the fruit was put back in the kettle and boiled in this juicy syrup until thick. And then it was transferred to large canning jars, and then they would pour the syrup over the top. And then when the peaches were cool, they would put a sheet of paper that had been dipped in brandy and lay it on top to form a seal between the preserves and the lid. And sometimes the under coating of the paper was also spread with like an egg white, which helped create a tighter seal apparently, and that would keep out air and insects. So I guess they would even have that as a problem if they opened it up and maybe insect would get in. So these type of preserved peaches, specifically the brandied peaches, are what we're going to talk about today. And they're just one of many fruit preserve recipes which were featured in Abby Fisher's What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking, which is the oldest known American cookbook written by a formerly enslaved person. Now, Abby was a remarkably resourceful woman who overcame adversity and helped keep her family together, really, through her guidance and support. Her achievements are remarkable within the culinary world and especially significant within the sphere of African-American cookery. So Abby, whose maiden name is unknown, was born in 1832 on a plantation in South Carolina. And according to census records, Abby's mother was born in South Carolina too, and her father in France. So it can be assumed that he was most likely a slave owner. And Abby grew up working in the plantation kitchen, where she became a phenomenal cook, leading to her success later in life.
And let me add here, Becky, that when I was, we've created a recipe card for the brandied peaches, which is at the printers, and all of you will get one of those. But when I was going through Abby's cookbook, at her very last recipe, recipe number 160, is Pap for Infant Diet. And this is something that, you know, as an enslaved person, and then later to her own children, she served this. And I found it ironic because it says, I have given birth to 11 children and raised them all and nursed them with this diet. So she had 11 children, none of whom died. Anna Maxwell had 6 children, 3 of whom did not live to adulthood. So she knew something that other people needed to know. I just thought that was fascinating. Thanks for letting me share that, Becky.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought the same thing. And the fact, well, then I'm going on to tell you about how they moved across country. So Abby married Alexander Fisher around 1859 and moved to Mobile, Alabama, sometime prior to 1860. And as Diane just mentioned, the couple had 11 children. By the end of the Civil War, she and her family gained their freedom and moved from Mobile all the way to California in 1877. Now, it's unknown how they made this treacherous journey. Was it by rail or wagon or whatever? We just don't know. And she would have been about 33 years old at the time. So once they arrived in San Francisco, Abby really capitalized on her talents as a cook, taking advantage of the changes that the city was undergoing at the time. She was helped the wealth of the gold rush that was going on. Railroads were getting built out. So there were people coming to San Francisco. There was money there to be had. San Francisco was really evolving from a rowdy frontier town to a place with more refinement and culture. So smartly, Abby set up a catering business, which was soon in high demand among San Francisco's leaders and upper class. This included stockbrokers, lawyers, merchants, life insurance actuaries, and her esteemed reputation grew. And in addition to the catering operation, she also established a pickles and preserves business along with her husband. And while the 1880 census notes Alexander's profession as pickle and preserves manufacturer, the business was really under her name, Mrs. Abby Fisher and Company. And according to food historian Karen Hess, it's apparent that Abby was the guiding force in the family enterprise. So in 1879, which was just 2 years after she arrived in California, Abby won diplomas for her pickles and her blackberry brandy at the Sacramento State Fair, which was the highest award you could win. Then in 1880, Abby, who was then 48 years old, took the stage at the 15th annual San Francisco Mechanics Institute Fair to accept 2 medals. One was a bronze for best pickles and sauces, and then she also won a silver for the best assortment of jellies and preserves. And the jurors really praised her. And, as I put in this quote here, the pickles and sauces have a piquancy and flavor seldom equaled, and once tasted, not soon forgotten. She had also entered submissions for preserved fruits and vegetables, blackberry brandies, and homemade vinegar. So it really was quite a sizable number of entries. Now, her cooking abilities became so revered that many of these patrons, her customers, begged her to record her knowledge and experience of Southern cooking, pickle, and jelly making. They really wanted to make sure that future generations could enjoy all of Abby's delicacies. So Abby, who could not read or write, organized all the recipes in her head and dictated them. So the extensive cookbook that was entitled What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking was then published in 1881 by the Women's Cooperative Printing Office with a woman, Agnes B. Peterson as the publisher. And you have to realize this was about 40 years before women got the right to vote. So it was women helping women, and they really made this happen and had this cookbook printed. Abby proudly claimed that after her 35 years of experience in the art of cooking, qualified her to publish her often requested recipes, assuring readers that the book will be found a complete instructor so that a child can understand it and learn the art of cooking. So she really wanted to make sure that anybody could look at this and learn from it. Now, in the book's preface, Abby refers to these lady friends and patrons in San Francisco and Oakland and lists them at the end. I know it's kind of hard to see, but the image on the right, you can see them there. She's listing the different people's names and their addresses. And this committee of 9 recorded Mrs. Fisher's knowledge and expertise from dictation, as I mentioned. And again, these are the previously mentioned stockbrokers, businessmen, and their wives. And it really was an indication of the respect and support that Abby garnered in her day. And I like that throughout the cookbook, she has these tips like always preserve the cling peach and no other, and directions to boil corn in the cob for exactly 7 minutes, because a longer cooking time will take all the sweetness from the corn. So all these things are peppered throughout the text, things that we don't necessarily get today in a recipe, just kind of like advice, like this is what's worked for me, so I'm sure it'll work for you, kind of thing. And as I always say to people, the verbiage is really instructive and thoughtful. And this is what is most significant about Abby's recipes. They're captured in her own words. They also provide a clear glimpse into the food that she likely made at home for herself and her family, such as the recipe I have listed here for light bread pie. It was an excellent way to use up stale bread. Circuit hash, which was most likely succotash. And she says to put the corn 5 minutes before dinner to cook with the rest of the stew. So she's obviously making a full dinner, and she's like, if you're making this with something else, this is the order you want to do it in. And it's just really helpful. So there's 160 recipes divided into 13 categories in Abby's cookbook, including, she actually has 2 for brandy peaches. And both start off, always have the cling peach free from decay. Now, cling peaches, sometimes they're called clingstone peaches, are those varieties where the flesh is actually attached to the pit. Like I'm sure, all of us have, you try to eat a peach, or even a lot of times I try to cut it in half, and it's nice if you can just kind of twist it and it comes apart and the pit comes out, but that's not a cling peach. But the thing is that they're more difficult to prep, obviously, than freestone peaches. Those kind I was just talking about are the freestone, but they're typically firmer and less juicy, which really makes them more preferable for canning because they hold up better. And nowadays, California is actually a big producer of cling peaches because they supply the canning industry out there. So I know I often don't see, even in the store, sometimes I don't know until I cut or bite into it what kind of peach they are, because I don't know that they always even say anymore, but I'm sure you've come across those 2 types of peaches. And now I'm going to transition to another culinary expert who was also very significant to African-American foodways, and one that was actually local to this area. And that was John Trower, who was a very successful caterer, businessman, and philanthropist. Now, Trower was born in Northampton County, Virginia in 1849 to freeborn Eastern Shore Black farmers Luke and Anna Trower, who were actually of white, Native American, and African American heritage, which was a matter of pride for them. Now, John was a gifted and determined boy, from everything that's written about him, with his family and friends often claiming there's something great about that boy. And he worked on his family's farm until he was about 21, and he saved as much as he could because he wanted to pay off his family's debts. So he was able to do that and presented his mother with the deed to the farm. And then with just $52 in his pocket, he left the farm to make his way in the world. And he first ended up in Baltimore. When he was in Baltimore, he began working in a restaurant as an oyster shucker, which was a very important skill set for the time. And he was able to save some money and then make his way to Philadelphia in 1870, where he settled in Germantown, which was one of the wealthier sections of the city in the late 19th century. So while in Germantown, he rented a room and sublet his bed while he slept on the floor. He was so enterprising and always thinking of, how can I make the most of my situation and the money that I'm making to save it. To make money, he took a job in a tap room and sold pies there, as well as to other tap rooms and on the street. Like they had different pie vendors that would be, sell pies on the street. And then he spent his quote unquote summers off working in hotels in Atlantic City. So he made his way between the two. There was good money to be had working at different beach resorts at the time. So that's what he did in the summer. And then eventually he used the money he saved to enter into a partnership with George W. Brown to form Trower and Brown Caterers, which was a small restaurant on Shelton Avenue in the neighborhood of the Philadelphia and Reading train depot. Now, both men were listed as residing at the address at the time. But apparently the partnership with Brown was short-lived, seeming to have terminated after just 1 year. And this termination of the partnership required Trower to either buy out his partner or to sell his own interest in the business. So with the help of another Germantown businessman whose name was Henry Bruner, he was able to come up with the money that he needed and help close the deal. Ironically, Bruner actually operated a hotel, bar, livery, and stable at the Fountain Inn, which was a nearby building on Germantown Avenue, owned by the Worcester estate. But he was obviously fine with Trower being his competition because he helped him out. So that was a good thing. And the restaurant prospered, and Trower soon established himself as a caterer too, developing a larger and even more lucrative business serving the wealthy residents of Germantown and Chestnut Hill. And this photo here, this was from James Lyons' Diane. He supplied this. So he was a descendant of John Trower that Diane, we've met him. He's really great. And so that was a photo that he supplied of an event
I have this one, but I don't have that young John Trower, and I don't have that previous one. So I need to get these from you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, part of it was, and we'll talk about this, I don't know if I have any slides with it, but so his business still exists in Germantown, the building. It's called the Crab House now. Oh, yeah. And when they made that a public official historical marker, Dan Macy, he's another friend of mine and Diane, he was able to there's this whole, like they put together this whole packet of information about John Trower.
He went to that. Okay.
Yeah, I can share that with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, so this is the building that is still today is the Crab House, the Trower building. So his catering business was really state of the art. The first floor housed his offices, a dining room, a delivery department, and an ice cream plant, like he would produce the ice cream there, and it was all powered by electricity. The second floor featured a reception room, a dining hall that could seat 150 guests, and the baking department. And then the third floor was home to a storeroom and laundry, and the basement contained china closets and storage rooms for all the catering implements that he needed. And his staff included 5 clerks, all young men and women of color, and 20 employees for the culinary, ice cream, baking, and delivery service departments. And as you can see here by this quote, and this was from that historic marker document, that the estimated value of the building was $75,000 in 1907. I should have looked up what that would be today, but know that it would be a sizable amount of money today. So in addition to being a successful caterer, Trower also maintained a lucrative real estate business. He owned considerable property in both Germantown and Ocean City, New Jersey, where he had his summer residence and an ice cream and pastry shop, which he launched in 1896 out of concern for the continued employment of his employees over the summer. So he was always looking out for other people too. Like he wanted to make sure that his employees had employment during the summer. So that's why, down in Ocean City, why he did that. And he was also an active member of this Tabernacle Baptist Church. There's a photo here, or a picture here. And he helped form the Civic Purity Society, as you can see in this article from the Trenton Evening Times. So, that's a whole nother factor that I wasn't going to necessarily go into today, but I'm happy to talk about it, is his philanthropy. He was very, he gave back in so many ways to the community. So he's just an amazing person on so many levels. Now, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about ice cream, since this is brandied peaches over ice cream, and just give you a little backstory on ice cream. So ice cream wasn't invented in the US. Forms of ice creams have actually been around since the 13th century, but it has become hugely popular over the past couple hundred years, with the average American now consuming about 22 pounds of ice cream per year. I don't know, I might even eat more than that, I don't know, but and the city of Philadelphia really has played a significant role in promoting ice cream, particularly during the 19th century. This picture here on the left, he's an ice cream vendor selling, again, on the streets. There were a lot of street vendors that sold oysters and pies, as I mentioned, and ice cream was one of these too. He's got them in those little containers. And then this is just a picture of vanilla ice cream. James Parkinson, who we mentioned before from the $1,000 dinner, he and his family were huge ice cream makers in Philadelphia. And so the city is actually often referred to as Ice Cream City. And that's because it was really in an advantageous location, which was ideal for making ice cream. So, as you know, it's sandwiched in between the Schuylkill and Delaware rivers. So they had plentiful ice harvests each winter. And then they would store the ice in ice houses, so it was available year round. And then the fresh quality ingredients were delivered from local farms to the markets in Philadelphia. So that would be like out in Lancaster or, in South Jersey, Bucks County, all the neighboring counties where there's a lot of produce grown. And Philadelphia ice cream was traditionally uncooked. So, if you think about like custards, a lot of French ice creams are actually cooked or they add eggs. The Philadelphia ice cream was just fresh cream, fruit juice or pulp, if it's a fruit ice cream, sugar, of course, or a sugared syrup, and then any flavoring such as vanilla beans. And that would be, thoroughly blended. And it was really a smooth consistency and rich flavor. Now, in the mid-19th century, ice cream and other frozen treats were really getting more reasonably priced, because that was the thing too, the ice, it helped with the ice houses, but there was always the cost of all the ingredients too. But so in the 19th century, especially the mid 19th century, it was still pretty much a special extravagance reserved mostly for the wealthy due to the time and labor involved. And they were most often served in these special pleasure gardens or ice cream parlors. So there were gardens throughout the city. Bosse's Gardens was one. Parkinson, who I've talked about numerous times today, he had pleasure gardens behind his restaurant, which they would have paved paths and a fountain. Even the paths were lit at night with gas lighting. So it was really a place for people to go, especially like think how hot it gets. And if we didn't have air conditioning, which they didn't, so they could go to a cool spot and, enjoy some ice cream. And it's ironic too, or interesting, that the flavors were much different than today, really based on ingredients that were fashionable and available at the time, with fruit flavors being the most common. Like today we think, chocolate, vanilla, maybe strawberry, but it was really the fruit flavors. In the 1840s and 50s, the most popular flavors were lemon, strawberry, pineapple, and then vanilla too was starting to become more popular. Thomas Jefferson was a huge, I think he pushed that forward. He really liked his vanilla ice cream. And then I just list some of the flavors, like, which you don't even think about today: sarsaparilla, nectar, ginger, coffee we still have, obviously. But so that picture there depicts some of the flavors listed on the sign. And now talking about the factors that aided the popularity of ice cream, I've kind of mentioned them, but just to outline. So affordability, the price of sugar came down in the 19th century, largely due to sugar processing improvements combined with the development of beet sugar. And that really helped increase the supply and lower costs. Accessibility, improvements in ice harvesting combined with the invention and adoption of the ice box. That really helped when ice boxes came into play. And then, of course, electricity was a game changer. But it meant that ice cream and other cold desserts were more easily crafted and stored. in a location. And then technology. So it was actually a woman, American Nancy Johnson, who invented an ice cream freezer for home use in 1843, which featured a crank and dasher inside the stirring pot so that the ice cream could be churned without having to open the pot. And that made it much more easier and available to the masses. Now, Mrs. Johnson's invention made ice cream making so much easier, but she actually sold her rights to the invention to kitchen wholesaler William Young for just $200 because she had no finances to produce it herself. And then after that, he marketed the machine as the Johnson patent ice cream freezer. And then, other companies quickly, capitalized on it, and it really took off. This is the Star ice cream freezer, just one of the versions that came about. And now what about ice cream sundaes? Because that's kind of like the brandied peaches over ice cream. That's, what we think of as kind of like an ice cream sundae. Well, throughout most of the Victorian era, ice cream was actually made fancy through unusual flavors, like I mentioned previously. Some other ones are biscuit glacé, nectar, and ginger, but also these intricate serving molds, which I'm showing here in this picture. They would definitely, take ice cream and mold it into these different shapes. And that was one way to make it like just fancy when they would serve it. Now, fruit compotes and fresh fruit, such as strawberries, were often served together with ice cream and other sweets on a dessert table during the era. So it's not out of the question that someone would think to combine them, but there's just no real evidence of that until a little bit later in the century. So the exact origins of the ice cream sundae are really unclear. There's so many different versions of how it originated. Ice cream toppings in the form of ice cream sundaes were unknown really until the latter part of the 19th century and didn't really become popular till the turn of the century, so around 1900. And these were mostly syrups that came about when the soda fountain became a hit with their ice cream sodas. As this is like an old time soda fountain picture. One of the first published sundae recipes appeared in a publication called The Modern Guide for Soda Dispensers in 1897. Now, perhaps the best known, because the other thing is, well, why is it called a sundae? Why is that name?
Regina just asked that question.
Oh, did she? I know, and I'm sorry.
I'm going to get to that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not monitoring the chat because I can't see it.
Interrupt you in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the explanation for that. Well, there's, like I said, there's different versions. Most people, like food historians, think that the name was created to circumvent blue laws, which ban the sale of ice cream sodas on Sunday. So I don't know what you all know about blue laws. I know, just because we used to go to Ocean City when I was little, that like they wouldn't sell merchandise on Sunday, like certain merchandise. They also ban alcohol, but I don't know if that's specifically the blue law. But anyway, it was just blue laws came about during colonial times and were designed to prohibit certain activities on the Sabbath. So each town had their different, what they would ban and what they, didn't want to sell for the blue laws. And numerous locations boast this claim to saying that's where ice cream sundaes come from. Here's two examples. One is that President Theodore Roosevelt actually banned ice cream sodas on Sunday when he was head of the New York City's police board, and fountain operators responded by creating a new soda-less treat. So like that's how they circumvented it. Another theory is a druggist from Evanston, Illinois, decided to serve ice cream with syrup, but no soda, in order to circumvent an ordinance prohibiting the sale of ice cream sodas on the Sabbath. So there's numerous theories that have to do with the blue laws, and that's why they say Sunday, because the blue laws often happen on Sunday. But then there's other, whoops, I'm sorry. And I went to the chat. Oops, I'm just going to do that. There's other examples that don't involve blue laws. One is that a Cleveland druggist with a flourishing Sunday trade started serving ice cream topped with fruit. He just decided to do that. And he advertised the treat as a fruit sundae. That's what he called it. But his regular customers started ordering it on weekdays too. So he changed the spelling to SUNDAE to differentiate it from the day of the week. And then the other one is this, I found this picture of the sign. The city of Two Rivers, Wisconsin says, you know, their claim to fame is that a soda fountain customer wanted to top his ice cream with chocolate sauce, which was previously only used for ice cream sodas. It soon took off, but was only available on Sundays until one day a little girl insisted on a dish of ice cream with that stuff on top, saying they could pretend it was Sunday. So there's any number of theories, but I mean, obviously it does have to do with the day of the week and something, I'm sure something either being prohibited or it was invented on a Sunday and then they just wanted to change the name to differentiate it from the day of the week. And then in any case, ice cream sundaes were very popular by 1900. And to circle back to John Trower, this was the time frame of both of his ice cream shops, the one that he had here in Germantown and the one in Ocean City. So it's likely that he sold sundaes there. I found this article from the Colored American newspaper from 1901, and I highlighted, it talks about his very imposing ice cream parlor. So even though I wasn't able to find anything that said he specifically sold sundaes, I'm sure, you know, just to remain competitive, they all seem like they all started doing, you know, capitalizing on the Sunday aspect. So, so that's what I have for the presentation, but I can check the chat now and see if there's anything. Let's see. So Ellen says Clingstone versus.
I think some of these are comments.
Okay.
You know, you can just actually, you can just ask questions. We'll change. Becky, why don't you take down your PowerPoint and then we can see everybody, and if somebody has a question.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to read through Ellen asking the civic. I don't know if the Civic Purity Society led, I think that with Ocean City being perpetually dry, that I was just reading something about that. And I think it's more to do with the Methodist, you know, it was founded by Methodists and they just wanted to keep it, you know, as a family type of place, but I don't know for sure.
So Becky, did you need to turn your burner up for the boiling water? Or?
Yeah, and we can move into the kitchen. I just wanted to make sure that I got all the comments. Yeah, here, I'll turn my camera off just for a second.
Okay.
And then go do that real quick. And I'm still talking. Okay, the water's boiling pretty well.
So she has to move to her kitchen so she can demonstrate how to.
I'll move in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fountains. Well, I didn't get Ellen's other comment about polybaking. Right, that's true. If you use the freestone in a pie, right? I know. I always if I make the pie that way, I make sure I get the pits. It's kind of silly. I'd almost, because I don't know about that almond. You know, I have the peaches here. We need 1 cup of brandy. And the other thing just to say is this is such an easy recipe because it's only 4 ingredients: the peaches, brandy, sugar, and water. So it's really, really easy. I mean, you could add cinnamon or any spices if you wanted to make it more, you know, spicy. You could also use peach brandy or any other flavor of brandy if you wanted to do that. This is just regular, you know, brandy here that I have, but that's another thing that you could do if you wanted a little different taste to it. And the thing is with this recipe, there's a little bit that you can do ahead of time to prep it. One is you have to have a bowl of ice water ready because we're going to score the peaches and dip them in boiling water to make them easier to peel. So I need to have a container of ice water ready. So I'm gonna go, I have my bowl over here all ready to go, but I have to go into my refrigerator because I have some ice water already in there, so I don't have to get it ready. So I'll be right back over here. Let's see. So I have a bowl. I just have ice in this bowl. I'm going to put it in this bowl. I know it's going to make a racket. And then I have water, so I'm going to have, so that I have the ice water all ready to go. And then the peaches come out. And then, so I don't know if any of you ever have done this. Like I do it with tomatoes too, to make them easier to peel. You just take a little tiny knife and you cut an X on the bottom, not going in too far. So I don't know if you can see it, but I just made a tiny X. So I'm going to do that with all of them. So these little tiny
Becky,
X's.
how ripe do you like the peaches to be?
Yeah, it's funny. I bought these a couple days ago and then they're starting to get a little too ripe. They should be just medium ripe peaches, but peaches are so tricky because like one day they're fine, the next day,
So like if you just put your thumb, like you could just be able to make a slight indent with your thumb, is that what you would mean
that's
by
what these
medium
are.
ripe?
Yeah, these are kind of giving a little, like when I made this before, the peaches were really, I think, too firm and they didn't peel well either. So that's why we'll see if this works with this method of the peeling. So I'm going to swing around and see if I can do this. Oops. So I have my pot of water boiling on the stove here, and I'm just going to dunk these in. Be careful not to it burns myself. And I don't know, I like to say like 30 seconds or so to do it, a lot of times they'll rise up to the top. It's hard to, I don't know if you guys can, I don't want to make you dizzy by looking in, but they're like, they're in my pot there. So I'm just trying to see, because when they come out, then you're gonna have to put them right immediately into that ice water bath to kind of, just like we would do with some vegetables and stuff. So I'm gonna take them out because I don't want them to get too much. So I'm gonna move my ice water. That way you can see over here. Hold on. If you can see me. So I'm just gonna, I have the peach here. I'm just gonna put it in the ice water. I'll do it for all 4 of them. Oh, the peels are coming off, so it looks like it, I hope I didn't do it too long. And that's why it's good to have the ice water, because then it stops the cooking process, obviously. So we're going to do that. And then also, while that's happening, I wanted to show you that, because I didn't really have time to boil it as we're talking, but I already made the sugar syrup. So again, I don't know if you can see it in this pot. It looks kind of like syrup, but so that's just the cup of sugar in the water, and you boil it for about 5 minutes till it creates like this sugar syrup.
Is it 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup water?
That's what I used for this. Yeah.
And again, we'll have the recipe card, and I'll send it out to those of you that are enrolled in the in this workshop today.
Right. And then, so I'm going to come back over here and get my peaches out of here and hope that they're not too far peeled. So I'm just going to put them in this bowl here. Okay. So, whoops, just trying to go down. So, I mean, they're probably still kind of, oh, they're actually not too bad. So I don't know if you can see, but the peels are just kind of slipping right off. I'm just going to put them right in this dish. Can you, I don't know if you guys can see that, but they're really, and the other thing you can do to make it easier, frankly, is to run it under cold water too, just so there's not any little bits left. which is what I'll probably do real quick over here. Just to... And then, oops, I'm just gonna move this over here. And then we're just gonna cut them. Let's see what, yeah, these to me, yeah, see, these to me are these are freestone.
Yeah.
So, and it didn't say at the store that I got. Oh, hold on a second, my fridge is open. Oh, so these, you know, are easier they're going to be easier to slice here. And you can slice them, you know, however big or small you want. For this, if we're going to serve them over the ice cream, it would probably be nice to have, you know, a little bit thinner. We don't want them too thin because then we don't want them to break down more in the, you know, in the syrup or whatever.
So do you think you would like of half a peach, would it be quarter half a peach, or?
Well,
or
what
about
do you think? I mean, do you want them
5 slices out of half a peach?
Yeah, do you want them like this thick, or do you want them a little bit thinner?
I think a little thinner, but unless you think they'll disintegrate in the brandy will take over.
Let's see, and then we can see about how many slices we're getting. Hold on. I mean, I'm getting 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm getting like 16 slices
from a peach.
So if that helps
so
you.
that's
and this
good.
wasn't
right.
And
then everybody can have three slices in the
right. And these weren't even huge peaches. Like I couldn't find the really big ones, but they're, you know, like a good medium-sized peach. If somebody asked a question.
So Sue Schran just asked, have you ever tried doing it with the skin on? And then she said that Dory Greenspan suggests leaving skins on for baked goods, but Abby Fisher tells you to take the skins off. So this is our recipe that we're doing, you know, after Abby Fisher's recipe. But I can see like for cobblers and pies that might be nice.
Yeah, in fact, so that pie recipe that I mentioned before to you guys with the whole peaches, you can do that with the peel on too. So it's really just your preference, what you like, you know, and how I think people have come to expect things to be peeled, you know, so it just depends on what, you know, or if you're serving children, because a lot of times they like to have it peeled. But so, and then again, I don't know if you can see, but I'm taking, yeah, so these are nice freestone peaches.
Now, are you cleaning out like the little brown goop in the center before you put them in there, or can you leave it just?
These don't have it, Lisa, because they're freestone. So it's really, these are nice. Yeah.
But on the cling, then you might have to take a little paring knife and clean that out a little bit.
Yeah, and I did with the last batch that I made, because they were definitely, I got them at a different farm, so that's probably why too. I got these both. I think
getting them from a farm is a good idea because you know they're fresh.
Right, and that's what you know, the one I got at Shady Brook Farms and the other one I got at this Charland Farms, which is near me. So so anyway, this is what, like two, oops, sorry, my fingers have all, I don't want to get juice on my computer, but so these are 2 peaches and what they look like. They look really good. But you know, I don't know. It's up to you, Diane, if you want me to do all 4 and like really finish the recipe.
Just, that would take too long. So just show then.
Yeah. So I just wanted
to so that everybody.
Yeah, the next step is to I'm just looking to make sure I'm doing this in the right steps. Continue. Okay, so what we need to do now is add these peaches to the sugary syrup, and we're gonna we're supposed to return it to a boil, which it shouldn't take that long to boil there because there's not much syrup in there. And that's what I don't know. I mean, I was just following kind of what Abby and other recipes they want you to do it for a minute and then stop and then a minute. So I don't know what the theory is behind that. And I'm just looking, let's see. And then we're going to
bring it to a
remove.
boil for a minute and then stop,
Yeah.
and then bring
That's-
it back up to the boil
Well,
again?
then we're going to take the peaches out.
Oh, I see.
So I'm going to take them out and put them in my, hold on a second, my bowl. Oops. And then we're going to put the brandy with the sugar. And then,
Oh,
sorry, I have
okay.
like
They
a
don't want
light-
the peaches boiling in the brandy.
No,
Yeah,
because the brandy is going to then get poured over. the
yeah,
peaches.
right. That makes sense.
So, you know, so these are, it's
And
not
how
very-
thick is your simple syrup? Is it, I mean, I've made simple syrup before, like for cocktails or whatever. And it's usually liquidy. Is this like a thick?
This is probably a little thicker today than I would normally do, just because I wanted to do that step ahead of time. So it was sitting for a little bit of time, but I can show you with a spoon, Lisa. Hold on one second. Let me get a spoon. Let's see if I can put some on a spoon. I don't know. Ooh, I don't want to get it on my computer, but I don't know. Can you see? Kind of, it's pretty thick.
So it
but-
wouldn't normally be that thick, or it?
No, it wasn't quite that thick when I did it when I made my other
But
batch.
it's because you had to make it ahead of time.
Yeah, and now I'm just trying to bring this up to a boil. And then I'll take the peaches out, put them in my dish, and then I'll pour the brandy in, and then bring that to a boil, or for about 30 seconds. And then, it's pretty, okay, so this, you can see, can you guys see, it's like boiling a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna take them out. And where's my slotted spoon? Here it is. And I'm sorry, you guys can't see very well, but oops. So I'm just taking them out, putting them in here. And really, you should really strain them.
So you would normally say, take them out, strain them, and put the juice back in there.
Yeah, I'm leaving the
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Syrup in there, because now I'm gonna add the brandy to that. So I have my brandy here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna add that in there. Oops, there's a peach that didn't make it out of my, get him out of there. And then, ooh, I can smell the brandy. I put that back.
Don't drink it till the presentation's
I
over.
know, right? I'm gonna bring that, and that has to go to a boil. Sorry, my light's like right there and there. And once that, just bring it to a boil, like, and maybe leave it for like 30 seconds. And then I think, it says to pour the hot brandy syrup over the peaches, but whatever, I guess you could let it cool a little, but I think pouring the hot over, then it also softens the peaches a little bit more. And what you're going to do is then leave them out on the counter before you put them away in the refrigerator. Just like anything, you want it to cool down to room temperature before you refrigerate it. But yeah, so it's starting, it's not taking long. It's already starting to boil. I don't know if you guys can see there. It's a nice color from the brandy. So,
So if we're making them for your event, which I think you said, is it the 17th or the 24th?
The 17th, the 17th.
So
So
do
you
we
can
have
make
them
them
made the week-
anytime.
Do we have them made the week before to get to you so that they sit for 2 weeks?
Yeah, they need to sit.
yeah,
For 2 weeks?
I at least a week, Lisa. I think a week is fine. That's why. Okay, now this is, so now look, when it's really boiling, see that? Can you guys see it?
Yes.
I'm going to take it off now. Okay, so I'm taking it off. And I'm going to pour it over my peaches. Oh gosh, can you guys see? And I only have 2 peaches in there, so I have to add the other 2, obviously. So it would, when you guys would do it with 4 peaches, it would look, you know,
Mhm.
it would look so. This is what I did the first batch I made. And the first time I made them, I just cut them in half. That's why it looks like that. And I actually used some yellow and some white peaches. I used a combination. So that's that. And then these are the spice peaches. So we don't, Diane has that on the recipe
Yeah,
card.
I'm gonna make spice peaches.
Yeah,
Everybody
so
else
these
is
have
making
vinegar
brandy peaches. Yeah,
and these have spices in it. I think somebody had asked in the chat
yes.
about,
Regina's surprised there are no spices, but
Yeah.
Abby Fisher didn't have spices in her brandy.
yeah, she didn't have any spices, but feel free to put them in yourself if you want to. Or like I said, use a brandy that is flavored. You could do that. There's peach brandy, apricot brandy, if you want to do that. I mean, the brandy itself has, you know, if I smell it, I mean, it has its own kind of flavor to it.
So then the other peaches that we're gonna have at the opening for the art show is just spiced peaches, and those are after a recipe that Anna Maxwell had. So there'll be 2 different options. We figure most people will want the brandy peaches, but some might want the spiced peaches.
Yeah.
So
And
the-
the spice peaches, like I told Diane this the other day, you know, you can put whatever spices really you want in there, including black peppercorns. But for this, if you're going to serve them over ice cream, you might not want to put that in there. It just depends. If you like, some people like that kind of thing, but so.
Did anybody else have any questions?
That sounds
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank
No, I
you
just-
very much.